Really, there's three things that we leave behind as filmmakers that leave an impact. Number one, the vision that we have on a project.
Yeah.
Number two, the character that we have on set as a director, as a leader,
Yes.
as somebody who's, walking and nursing this project into inception. Then there's number three, which is the impact that we leave behind with our films.
Welcome back to the Corner Talks podcast. I have my good friend here.
How's it going, man? Happy to be back.
No, it shouldn't be about anything. Like, this is one life.
Yep, one life? Like, fucking do it.
My guy.
Like, she just got it. She totally understood it.
20 years old when I started just watching a lot of movies.
And it tells a story. I want to tell a story.
Good friend, special guest, Renjie Li, who is a filmmaker and artist. What's going on, buddy? How are you?
I'm doing well this lazy Sunday morning. How are you doing, Daniel?
Yeah, I'm doing well too, man. I appreciate you being a good sport, waking up with me at Sunday morning and killing it on this podcast, sharing your journeys, your experiences as a storyteller.
Honestly, I appreciate being here. And if for you and for anybody else who's watching and listening, to the viewers out there, hopefully we can give you some gems in the next couple of hours. Make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe. I'm not paid to do this, but just wanted to, share some support and love. Yeah.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, man. That actually means a lot. Always, feel gratitude towards my guests or my audience, I should say, that show the love and support. I've been feeling that adulation quite recently with a lot of guests that have come on. So it's just an indication to me that we're making progress with the podcast. It's exactly what it's supposed to be, making a safe space, an inclusive community of all these like-minded individuals to, again, share their story, share their journey and their experiences. So thank you for that. I really appreciated that, Renjie.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. And one more shout out. I want to shout out my boy who bought me this hat for Christmas. Sam.
Yeah, for sure.
He bought me this hat. He's like, Renjie, this is a red hat. It's a director's hat. It'll be a power statement. And I'm like,
It's
man,
true.
I don't think I need any more power. I just need some more, like just to chill. But
Yeah.
I just wanted to. I told him I'd wear this hat for this podcast, so just wanted to put this hat on.
Yeah, Tarantino wears a hat like that, I think. It was black, but I think he wore it on like Death Proof or Kill Bill, something like that, or maybe Jackie Brown. But I saw him in some behind the scenes wearing that hat, so it's definitely a power hat if Tarantino's wearing
honestly, I've never seen Asian people wear hats like this. But
if you want to emulate that energy,
we're starting to wave. There we go.
you're getting there. No, it's very vibrant. It stood out to me right when I signed in on the podcast. So yeah, kudos to your friend. Keep killing it with his business.
Appreciate you, Sam. All right.
Yeah,
Okay.
for sure. So Renjie, like I said, it's a pleasure to have you as a guest on the podcast after we connected over the holidays and passionately shared our adulation for filmmaking and cinema. And understanding your commendable respect for the craft, I feel compelled to inquire about your ambitious pursuits and becoming an established storyteller through film. So I want to know from you now, like, how did you become first involved in the film industry?
Oh, wow. Okay, good question. First, getting started in the film industry, honestly, I would probably have been a young child because I would have been a consumer of film first.
Of course.
Being a first generation immigrant to Canada, watching TV, that's CBC, that's TVO kids, growing up around that YTV and Fox. These things to me is how I first learned English. This is how I learned about the culture and what's going on here. Besides being outside. So being a consumer is probably where I got started. And then in my teenage years, I started making films, and I got to shout out another one of my buddies who I haven't seen for a long time. His name is Caesar. He was cutting my hair in my house.
Okay.
And we were just hanging out, and we were watching Batman, and I was like, "Yo, I think this and this and this is gonna happen." He's like, "That can't happen." So it happened, and he's like, "Yeah, well, you think you're so smart? Well, why don't you do it?" So that was when I was 17, and that got my first short film made that summer with him in it. And I remember how extremely awkward, embarrassing, but exciting and exhilarating it was in the experience.
For sure.
And that was probably the first thing I really directed. Also went to school for kinesiology and with the intention of being a doctor.
Oh, wow.
Switching from being a doctor, getting into the communications media and film program. That's how I became a filmmaker. And, been building on that career since then. And came back to Toronto, did some freelance, started doing my own projects, and I'm lucky to be where I am today.
Yeah, that's a well put together story, and highly familiar. I'm sure a lot of people can resonate with that. I know I do. It's very interesting that you said coming to Canada and like the environment kind of shaped and influenced your passion for the craft, right, for cinema. And it's what kind of directly led you through the people you surround yourself with, right? Like your friend Caesar there, cutting your hair and introducing you to an array of films. Batman, what a great film to, to be introduced to. But yeah, no, I was discussing with other creatives on the podcast, like, you know, the cities in which like we grew up in, how we all share this like universal passion, right, for film. Like it is in a sense a universal language, right? It doesn't matter where you're from, we all kind of identify with the story. That is if the story is simple, right? Like a strong resonating story will be simple. I mean, sorry, will be impactful if it's boiled down to its most simplistic level, right? That anyone can kind of understand. And I think that's how we all seem to kind of like share that connection. And, you know, interestingly enough, like I love how you were mentioning that you were made that transition from kinesiology to communication to media, and, you know, with the efforts, with the hopes of becoming like a director, which you're exploring now. But at the time, like that was an audacious, courageous kind of move. And I'm curious, you know, because someone that's like an immigrant, who comes from an immigrant family, right? Like I myself identify, I'm first generation, but like, again, like having an Italian household, you know, being identifying with, if you're not a doctor or lawyer working for the government, what are you doing with your life? How are you able to make such a decision like that? That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, so definitely good question. I'm going to come back to something first, which is
Yeah,
the whole
100%.
being
Yeah,
an
yeah,
immigrant and having
for
different
sure, man.
countries.
Yeah,
I think what's really cool about film is the cheapest airplane you'll ever take. You'll be able
right.
to go ahead and see places just by switching the channel. You don't even have to leave your front door, but you can go around the world. And I think that's really cool. And especially in the places I travel, like when we shot No Minorities in Macedonia, being able to see all these things and share them with other people to say, hey, I came here and this is what this is like, this is what their culture's like. I think that there's an extreme amount of potential to make impact through film. To come
100%.
back to the medical point, honestly, dropping out, I was just at the point where I was like, I love medical school. I actually got scholarships to go back to school, which
Oh,
is great.
wow.
But like my grades are good. I don't want to say I'm Asian, but I'm a
No,
keener when
but
it comes to that stuff.
yeah, you were definitely academically inclined. There's
Mhm.
no shame in that. That's amazing, man. Yeah,
So, I mean, for me personally, it was just like I couldn't see myself going to school for another 10 years. And looking back, because it would have been 10 years since I left university
for
or when I
sure.
started university. I look back now and I'm like, the life experiences I've gained, the amount of trips and failures and bruised knees and, you know, scrapes that I've taken have made me a better person than if I just stayed in that sheltered environment, that
A
bubble
more
of
well-rounded individual.
OSAP and good food
Yeah,
and tuition and all that stuff.
gotcha.
Um, I think life experience is probably the most important. And although it would have been cool to be a doctor and I still like healing, I'm still big into, you know,
Yeah,
medicine and learning about the body and biohacking and all
for
that
sure.
stuff. I wouldn't trade the path that I took, scrapes and all, for where I am today. Yeah.
Wow, that's truly fascinating, man. And I'm so like proud that you said that. It's actually reassuring for a lot of filmmakers, like creatives like myself, who are not as academically inclined, you know, to pursue a career as a doctor. But at the same time, like I know what it's like to be in university and, you know, kind of go through academia and not feeling the most motivated, creatively inspired. And I had like, you know, there were times when I wanted to drop out or transfer. I stuck it through. I graduated with a marketing degree, and it serves me to this day. So again, like speaking to the notion of not having any regrets.
Uh-huh.
But at the same time, like I highly understand, you know, what having that conviction within yourself to like go after something that only you can relate to, right? Only you can identify with. And regarding the scrapes and bruises and the trips, like that's something that I'm kind of starting to see clearly. I think as I approach, you know, my 30s, as I wrap up my late 20s, I believe we're similar in age, where it's kind
94
of yeah,
productions. Yeah.
94. There you go. That's right. I was like, I feel like we're similar in age. That's right. We're exactly the same age. That's what it is, right? Like when you're in your early 20s, like everybody's kind of doing the same thing, and then as you get older, you start to realize like you embrace uniqueness, you know what I mean? Individualism. And I enjoy the fact that I'm well-rounded. We don't know where it's going to take us exactly, but it's much better than living a safe and secure lifestyle that we gain no kind of life experiences from.
Yeah. What I actually find funny about that is it was the guy who plays piano inside the subway station. He told me this a couple years ago. He said,
Okay.
"Son, a boat is safest on shore, but that's not what a boat's built for." And it makes me think about life and how we were built for more.
Right.
Because if you have a dream, there are some people who want to have a dream, and just having the dream is enough for them to go and wake up every day and feel motivated, even if they have no intention to chase the dream. And those
Yeah.
people could be like, man, I want to be this, I want to be that. If they don't take action towards it, it's always what could have been. And some people find hope in that kind of idea, and that's beautiful too. But for me, I'm feeling like, man, I'm the adventurous guy who says, if I have a chance to make the dream a possibility, I will do everything I can to make that dream come true. So
Yeah.
that's kind of where I put myself there.
I love that attitude.
To
Yeah.
come back to it for you, in terms of you, like when you made that decision to become a filmmaker, what were some of the major challenges you faced there?
Oh, that's very interesting. I love that you deflected it to me. No, I enjoy that. Challenges kind of I faced, I think initially was family, because they didn't support, like believe in me and my talent. It was more out of fear. Again, I come from an immigrant household, and I'm the only one that was audacious enough to kind of challenge, the family head on and say, like, I want to do something creative. You have to understand, like, I have cousins, CPAs, and, work for the governments and things
Yeah.
like that. So I'm an oddball, I'm a black sheep. But I have to say, like, everybody has been really encouraging. No one, as far as I know, has been like talking crap about me or like, try to belittle me in any way. I think it's, again, coming back to fear. And that's what as I get older, I understand. Now I'm very privileged. I'll say it straight up. Like, I'm not going to bullshit anyone on the podcast and say like, oh, I dropped everything and I had to work it out, whatever. And go through the mud, whatever. Yeah. I went through, the shit of it, to achieve, like, where I am, in the sense of getting contacts and clients and having people want to work with me. But in terms of like having an income, or in terms of having an education, in terms of having shelter and food and things like that, I wasn't living paycheck to paycheck. I have the fortune of living at home. I have the fortune that's how they show their support. But I also don't take advantage of that, right? Like, I'm always working. I take breaks, yes, here and there, but I'm not the kind of kid that plays, 8 hours of video games. You know what I mean? Like, and I say that because I know kids that are like that. And then they say, well, it's not easy to pursue your dreams. I'm like, well, yeah, but if you sacrifice certain things, maybe you'll have the time and the energy to pursue them, right? Like, it's a give and a take. It's like, I'm fully aware of my surroundings. I'm fully aware of my capabilities, like what I'm privileged with. And it's like, why not take advantage, in a sense, to pursue your passion, to pursue your dreams? As Gary Vee says, someone that you and I both idolize. It's like, your 20s is the time to take your risks. It's the time to go all out and fall on your ass and get back up. And I understand what he means by that. Is like, I'm starting to learn that. I mean, as I approach my 30s, responsibilities only increase. You know what I mean? Whether it's payments and, maybe if you meet someone, if you get married, if you have a kid, it just only increases. Like, the chances of that are only increasing. So it's like, your 20s, of course, you're going to want to go out there and make it your own, you know what I mean? And carve your own path. It's always something that I wanted. So yeah, the challenges were mostly with family. And I would say also, going back to like acquiring clients and networking events. I didn't go to film school. I didn't go to anything related to film. It was business. I have a Bachelor of Commerce degree. So you can imagine my network, my community. I had no idea even where to start with me. So that was probably the most challenging. I dealt with a lot of drawbacks and a lot of people telling me like no, and a lot of people just really not giving me the time of day. But I quickly understood the only way to prove myself is to actually showcase my talents. And that is through, work. And that's something that you and I know familiarized with. So what about yourself? Like, any challenges when you kind of like first made that choice, like right after kind of like making that transition, or up until the point of your first film? How
Well,
are the challenges there? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna come back to you and first say that I relate to you in terms of like my parents. I come from a line of doctors, engineers, and teachers. So
Wow.
from people to come from this kind of pedigree to something completely different,
Of
number
course.
one, even like my parents had doubts. Like, I don't know anybody in this industry. We are new to this country, and we don't know anybody here who can do that. So
Right.
really, if you want to do it, you're on your own.
Yeah.
And at the beginning, I realized I'm okay with that. Like, I'm always like, as an only child, I came here, whoever is there to play on the playground, I will go and make friends with them because
Yeah.
there is nobody else.
I like that.
And
Yeah.
you know what? To be honest, that kind of willingness and openness to experience, I think, is probably one of the big things. The other thing that was tough was, coming from a place where we didn't really have a film background. Like, some people have filmmaker parents, or parents who are in the industry.
Yes. I
And
love that you
so
bring that up.
and and you know what? I want to say it's an advantage, and I think people should take advantage of whatever privilege they have.
Everything helps,
So they
man.
can go ahead, and
Yeah.
it definitely can elevate them. But for me, like, for being somebody who started at the bottom, really, number one, being willing to share your work,
Mhm.
because you might be looking at something Like I went to I filmed something with my friends in grade 7 and 8. We had a production,
Oh wow.
probably the first videos we made in grade 7 and 8 because we had nothing else to do.
Right.
I went back and I saw my friend in Halifax and I watched these videos with him. And I'm like, first of all, I'm like, these are really, really cringe. Number two, I can still see like certain things and elements of what I had there 15 years ago,
Of course.
I
Yeah.
see in the films I'm making now. And so for people to see your work is vitally important, in my opinion. Not only so that they can understand that you're doing something, but they can also give you critique and advice going forward. I mean, what do you think about that?
No, I love that idea. And the thing is like I just like think the takeaway from your story is that you were making films back in when you were 12 years old, 13. Like I made a couple
Mhm.
videos
Yeah,
for school purposes, you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
projects.
Mhm.
But that's what I mean by like everyone's different. And again, a testament to like you pursuing your craft. It's like I didn't even have the confidence or or the abilities to have my work being
Mhm.
showcased at that age. Like it wasn't until probably I was 2021 that I made my first like short, and there was like no dialogue or anything. It was just music over visuals. So what I'm saying is like, yeah, like just goes to show like people have been doing this for a long time. Like when you said 15 years, I'm like, yeah, wow, like you've been at it, and but just to see the progress. Um, Going back to your question, sorry, what were you asking me about? Like, how do if I feel like a familiarity, like with what you were describing about
Yeah, I
like
mean,
going back to your
I'm
work?
gonna give you another question, which is like you
Yeah,
think
yeah,
about the
sure.
films that you made between like grade like 0 and 18, all the films that you made before you were 18. Imagine you had a film festival one day and
Yeah.
you just had to show an anthology of all the films that you made, all of the shitty films that you made. I mean, if you consider them that, but
No, for sure. Yeah.
I'm just wondering how you would feel because I'm asking myself the same question
Honestly,
right
I would
now.
feel,
Yeah.
yeah. To interject there, like I would feel great. I
Mhm.
actually got excited at that notion, and I'll tell you why. Is because I've already like sat down and gone through it, and I know what you mean by like the cringe, and gone through the muck of it, and just kind of like viewing all these films from the moment I started till up until now, and there was a sense of pride with the progression. And I'm glad you brought that up because with my YouTube channel, there's a reason why I keep all my videos up there
Mhm.
that you can find from when I first made. And
Check out his
people,
YouTube channel,
yeah, check out
please.
my YouTube channel. Yeah,
Plug it in there. Yeah.
especially if you're watching this video version. No, but I'm just gonna say is like if you look at my array of films, like everything that I put out there, like people will eventually say, "Oh, like are you gonna eventually like take it down if you make it, or when you make it, or as you become more established, like because you want to show more professional work?" And I said, "No, there's actually like this sense of responsibility that I want to put films that when I first started out, because again, I'm looking after the guy that started off like us, like from the bottom, and like
Mhm.
doesn't know anybody and feels discouraged. It's like I want them to like one day like revere me, see me as Daniel Calderon, the filmmaker, the director, and then see the first film that he made and how crap it was, or the first podcast episode I should mention as well. Like any creative endeavor that I pursued, I want them to see the first kind of like iteration of that. You know what I mean? And it's like that's what's so important for me. So yes, I'm definitely comfortable with that idea. I actually, you actually planted a seed. I might actually do that one day.
You know what? We should
Rent
have
out
a
a
film
theater.
festival and
Yeah,
have 5 directors and just
that's what
show
I'm
their
saying.
first works and then show their current works. And that would
I
be
love
like a
that.
festival day. I think that'd be cool. And
That'd be a sick
but I'm
idea.
gonna come back to that because if you think about it, you might have been, I remember being in grade 7 and making this and laughing and being like, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. I didn't watch it for another 10, 15 years. I come back now and I'm like, I laugh, there's tears of joy, but honestly, it's cringe. And I'll come back to you and I'll say this, which is something that you were proud of now, you might
Yeah,
not be proud of later. And something that
exactly.
you might not be proud of now, you might be very proud of later. So this whole thing about critique, I think it's really important as artists for us to accept that we'll never be perfect and that perfection is something we strive towards. Because otherwise, like, the amount of self-talk, the amount of unhealthy self-talk and critique that you can have with yourself can really be detrimental to yourself as an artist and as a human being, like even your mental health. So I think it's really having that perspective that no matter what it is, this is where I am. And I usually say this analogy. I say, listen, let's say you made a film and the film is really bad, but
Yeah.
it's still your film. It's like if you had a child and your child was really ugly, you had a really ugly baby, like I don't care what anybody says, that's still my child. I will take care of that child like my own.
Yeah, that's true.
Um, yeah, what do you think about that?
No, that's true, man. I love that you embrace the notion of there's no such thing as perfection. because I think we're all trying to tell a perfect story. That's what makes us creative. That's what motivates everyone. But the reality is there's no such thing as a perfect story, because if there were, right, we would all, a perfect story is everyone unanimously agreeing this is a perfect story, and then that would be it, right? Like, let's say The Godfather 1972 was a perfect story, right? Movies would cease to exist after that. Like I'm not kidding. That's how I look at it. It's like the world would stop. But no, the reason why creatives like us exist and have been for generations and generations after us is because there's always that one guy in the room that when he watches a perfect movie, a so-called perfect movie, he's saying to himself, I could tell an even better one, or I could tell one that I'm going to tell a story that's considered perfect. You know what I mean? And that relentless pursuit is why we are here today. You know what I mean? So it's like, I love that idea where there's no such thing as perfectionism. Like, for me, I'm always trying to make my work as perfect as possible. And what I quickly realize is no matter what piece of work that I'm proud of, I always look back and I'm always like, wow, I should have done it differently, or I cringe at certain parts, or I wince. And I'm like, that's part of the craft, you know what I mean? And that's how you become better, right? Is if you can look at your work and open and honestly say, I need to improve. You know what I mean? It's not, if you're always putting your blinders on and you're narrow-minded, you'll never improve, you'll never experiment, you'll never be willing to take risks, and you'll never be able to, like, you know, progress really at the craft.
Yeah, two things I want to say to that. I mean, number one is when it comes to progressing at the craft, if you ever watched, like, you remember when there were DVDs and you had like the actual DVD and then you had like the director's cut or like
yeah
behind the scenes
and
featurette.
I haven't gotten to that. I have like all like the home video and stuff, but I haven't gotten to those discs in a long time. But yeah, for sure.
But it's like, you watch like the director's commentary and they're like, oh, this was difficult and this wasn't perfect and we had issues here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, if these big directors feel the same way as I do now, I just got to realize it's a part of the process and work my way through that. And I think a lot of it is really kind of like mental gymnastics, and I think a part of it is also being spiritual, because going back to the idea of chasing your dreams.
Yeah.
They say in Buddhism that everyone experiences pain, but suffering is optional. So it's like you could choose the pain of chasing your dreams, or you could choose the pain of not chasing your dreams. Which one is going to make you happy? Because you're going to face some kind of pain somewhere. You'll always be uncomfortable somewhere. And the second thing I want to say is, as a first generation immigrant, work-life balance is also important, because when you come here, your parents have a certain expectation. You're going to come, you're going to be successful, you're going to be able to take care of yourself and provide for your family.
Yes.
But of course, while being, a salaried full-time employee and also being a creative on the side, there's definitely some challenges that come with that. Like, I think we talked about the idea of burnout last time.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you brought that up in terms of the work-life balance, because this is something that I am highly fascinated with and curious about every time I speak to a creative, because I get this a lot, right? Like, people say, like, what do you do full time? Like, what's your bread and butter? And as much as I want to say, like, oh, I'm a filmmaker, right? The reality is we got to pay the bills, because we're not at a Tarantino level yet. So I want to know from you, because I read on your Instagram profile that you work for TD Corporate. How do you balance your full-time job working at a company like that with a vastly demanding venture like filmmaking?
Absolutely. I mean, so yeah, like I do work at TD in the daytime, and I usually work in film in the evenings and weekends. This way I can actually balance the two. And I'm actually really great because TD is a company that has a lot of benefits and support. So for example, the vacation days that I've taken, I usually take vacation days to actually go and shoot other projects. So that will allow me, for example, a certain amount of shoot days per year, and that's something I'm really blessed in. The other thing is, it's like one step, one call at a time is a great way to get ahead. So for example, I'm focusing my day job. I'm there for however many hours it takes to get the job done. And then I'll say, okay, what else can I plan in the evening? So my day could look like, workout, dinner, take like a quick break for yourself, and then another few hours of work. And being able to do this, let's say it's an extra, 3-4 hours a night, take that, multiply it by, let's just say 5, not 6. So that's like 20 hours a week. 20 hours a week multiplied by 52, you're going to get close to another 1,000. So it's me putting an extra 1,000 hours into my craft, rather than doing nothing or saying, oh, I'm just going to go ahead and wait. Because the truth is that time never waits for us. And I think that, for somebody to have both sides, you're going to have to really be willing to outwork your peers and at the same time delegate. When you go ahead, you can't run forever. that's how you get burnt out. When you run the edge
Of
of fire,
course.
that's how it gets burnt
Yeah.
out. But the great thing about film is I could go ahead and do this. Once I finish this part, maybe it's time for me to go ahead and leave it with the editor or the sound mixer. I can go ahead and supervise them maybe for 1 hour every couple of days, but then they can take the work and I can cool my engine while they're heating up theirs. This way, when they're frustrated and they say, "Hey man, I think I got it. You need to come over. I'm tired." I can come and inject the energy. So
I
it's
love
really
that.
about, they say life is a marathon, not a sprint. Well,
Yeah.
filmmaking is a relay race, not a marathon.
That's so true.
Yeah. Your thoughts?
Yeah, no, it's I love that the key takeaway from that was delegation. Like that's something that I've come to realize as you become more sophisticated and the projects become more elaborate. Like a recent project that I'm working on now called Demon. It's in post-production. So I have someone working on the color grading and someone working on the sound mixing. Right now, before that, I would do everything.
Yeah.
So you can imagine right now, that's just the nature of the craft. You have to like indie filmmaking, you got to do it all your own. But now that I've acquired these contacts, again, as you do more projects, hey, this guy, did you know he's an expert in this? Or did you know this guy studied that? It's like instead of doing it all myself and burning out or just hating my life because it's so exhausting, I started to position myself more in the role of a filmmaker, like a director. I mean, like someone that sees the vision all the way through and is the ability to delegate certain tasks. I still edit, right? I still write. I still do the what's required of me if needed. But if there's someone that's more talented, more in an expert field, of course, I'm going to send them all my notes. I'm very thorough, so I have no problem with that. The question is who's going to be taking on the task, right?
And the great thing about that
Yeah.
is you're giving somebody the chance to do the job they love. For example, somebody might love editing and you might be like, I feel no ways about it.
Iffy about it, yeah.
So therefore, when you give them the job, it's a win-win because they want to edit a great project and you want to give someone else the role to edit that great project. So you can
I love that. That's actually
really
so
balance
positive.
yourself, no?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. That's amazing. And back to your notion about like what you were describing Buddhism, what are the teachings? It's like pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. It's how you interpret situations, right? Like you could see it as like, oh, I can't deal with this. Give it to someone else. Let them worry about this boring stuff. Or it's more like, no, like let me find someone that's more of an expert in this field, more talented, but also more enthusiastic. Because like you said, there are people. It's crazy to me actually. Like I was working with someone, they're like, oh, I love being the director of photography. I'm like, oh, what do you mean? Like you like shooting? He's like, yeah, I just love capturing the shots and dealing with the director. And I'm like, oh, so you wouldn't want to transition into a director role? He's like, no. He's like, I just like to hear the notes and like how I should position the camera, and that's it. For me, I can't comprehend that because it's like I got to be part of the whole process. I got to like see how the vision all the way through. I just can't be relegated to one role. But these guys like that I deal with, no, I'm serious. These guys that's what I mean. Confirmation more as like I'm a director is like I need to see the whole vision all the way through. But these people that they're just happy, they're more than satisfied. They're phenomenally gifted at what they do. I cannot do it, by the way. Like the director of photography I was dealing with, shout out to Sam Mapaduran, like he killed it. And he was very knowledgeable. He knew all the technical aspects of what was involved if I needed a certain shot a certain way. But I wasn't able to do it if it wasn't there. You know what I mean? Like he took the reins for that, right? And I'd be more than happy to like stand back, to have the humility to say, yeah, I don't know this field. You can take care of this. And that's what delegation is.
I think that's absolutely beautiful because the truth is I am not good at everything. And but to come back to the point, like especially owning a media company and working in film, you got to realize that everyone's good at something. So if you can say, for example, if you're Nick Nurse, you got to put these players in these positions.
Yes.
So, you don't put Steph Curry in the paint and you don't put Shaq on the free throw line. So what I'm saying is like you got to find where everyone's strengths and weaknesses are and what they like doing. If what people like doing is also their strength. So if you can find where everyone likes to be and put them in that position, you've now created a formation that can actually go ahead and be more efficient, like the movie 300. When you go ahead and put all the soldiers in a phalanx, having some kind of organization will actually allow you to magnify and exponentiate your efforts. And especially as somebody who doesn't have a lot of time, that's exactly what you need. You need to go ahead and just be laser focused right on down.
Yeah, and it all comes back to, like you were explaining, mental health, right? In service of that, and making sure it's maintained and relegated. Like, a common subject I openly discuss with creatives, and I enjoy it for that matter, is the matter of mental health. The often tumultuous nature of this prolific endeavor like, filmmaking, that is, can prove to have dire consequences, on artists' energy, stamina, and confidence levels. Myself included, several creative individuals have explicitly expressed their experiences with burnout. That's something that you touched on as well, right? So I want to know, like, how do you handle your own mental health, especially during periods of high stress or self-doubt?
Most definitely. I'll bring it back to Light Fest 2, which was our latest action film in the Light Fest series. This film, we shot in 2021. In total, between 2021 pre-production to actually release and being in like festivals and premiering, that took me 1,800 hours. And the reason I know this is because I wrote it down, like estimate
You clocked
over
it.
the past over the past like
it.
X amount of months. This is how many hours I've spent on it.
Yeah,
Even the amount of hours I spent driving and getting from place to place. So that was a lot of time. And I'll tell you, I had a lot of I kind of broke this down. This is how I was able to manage burnout and all the high expectations of a film. There were 5 S's. So for success, I needed sleep, sacrifice, support systems, and self-checks.
Wow.
So
I love that. You created that yourself, or you
I just made
acquired that
yeah.
idea?
Sorry? I mean, I'm sure the idea.
Oh, I'm sure it's somewhere. No, that's pretty cool. I'm
gonna
gonna write that down, actually. Yeah, that's amazing.
Success, sleep, sacrifice, support system, and self-checks. And here's what I meant. For example, I'm going to start with support system. So shout out to everybody on the Light Fest crew. Probably took about 65 people to actually make this film happen. Now, to come back to this, there were times where I was so tired, I was like, listen, I can't do this anymore. But I had an editor. I want to shout out to Akeem and Vass. And they were just like, listen, I will take this. You tell me what is needed to be done. We'll spend an hour talking about it, and I'll take it. 10 hours later, I'll come back next week, and the next 2-3 scenes are done, and I'm like, thank God, everything is great because you're in my life and you're helping make this happen. And they're willing to do it because they also find passion and joy in it. So finding the right people to support you is important. The other thing I want to come back to support.
For sure.
You need to have an accountability partner, but not just like, oh, did you get this stuff done? It's like, yo, how are you doing this week mentally?
I love that.
You said you're working 70 hours this week. Last week was 60. What's this extra 10 hours like for you? How are you feeling? Sometimes you need somebody to just be like, yo, remember, you're doing this for a reason. Don't forget about why you're here. You drive a car every 10,000 miles that says go to the mechanic. You go ahead and you're in MMA, you got a 1-minute break between every 5-second rounds. You cannot keep the engine on all the time. And especially when it comes to burnout, knowing that you can take a step back and having somebody else, drive for you is probably the best way to drive, because they say when you want to go quicker, you go alone. But if you want to go for a longer period of time, you go with somebody. So
it's so true.
To me, I think that's important. The other thing I want to talk about is biohacking, which if you want to go ahead and be successful, you should biohack. And like that's like, for example, me drinking this tea. Like I don't even know who, like the Chinese place downtown I got this from.
Yeah, of course.
It's good tea, goji berries, making sure that you're taking good care of your body.
Yes.
Because if you don't have this engine, you're not getting anywhere.
Yeah.
Exercise, sleep, the right times to sleep, using the circadian clock and actually the rhythm of the world. So for example, right now I look tired, and it's because I am tired. I had a late night, but I also had an early morning, because I know if I wake up in a certain time, my brain will be in this kind of like, I don't know if it's theta or alpha mind state.
Right.
And having this mind state and this brain wave, it actually allows me to be more creative. So like I'll know if I wake up, I got a pen and a paper by my bed, I can just grab it, close my eyes 30 minutes and just write whatever comes to mind. And then I'll wake up, I'll read it, I'll be like, holy, like what am I? And like just taking advantage of your body and your mind. I just find it's a better way to, just get more juice from the squeeze.
Yeah, it all comes back to routine and being organized. I love that. That's something that people take for granted, especially our generation, right? Like everyone's all over the place. Like they sleep at certain times, sleep during the day. Like it's cool, right? But I love that you have a system in place, right? Sistemato, as we say in Italian. Like
sistemato.
Yeah, like it's so important to have that, because that's essentially it. Like when I wake up, the snooze button, or at a time that I'm not supposed to, late in the day, like my brain is completely off. My brain's fried, actually. Like I can't even formulate words and thoughts. Like this podcast would be a mess. So I kind of push myself to get to bed at a good time, a decent time, and then wake myself up at a certain time. But I love that you said all about having the four S's, that was a huge insight. But just going back to like the accountability aspect, like for me, I don't really have people like saying, did you get it done? Like sometimes here and there, like it'll be like not a ruthless way. It's just more like, an inquisitive way. Like, they're just curious about if the project has been completed because they're excited to see it, kind of thing, right? Because my discipline is pretty well established, but at the same time, there's the accountability in the sense of like my parents, especially my mom, like close supporter, like she tells me like, would take a break. You don't need to work on that today, or why don't you relax, or like why don't you,
Wow.
and
God
that,
bless mothers. God bless
yeah,
mothers.
right. God bless mother. No, seriously, man. Like that to me, again, seeing it from another perspective. Because when we're working, right? Like I don't know about you. When I'm working, I'm thinking in my head, no one's taking a break. Everyone's going all in, like you, right? Like 1,000 hours, let's get it, right?
Yeah.
Then my mom will come along and say, take a break, the way she talks to me, she's like, you don't need to work. You're not getting paid for this. Or like, again, like
Yeah.
you don't really need to, depending how you handle it. Like some people would say like, well, that's the whole point. Like, that's why you're tenacious and like grinding it out. But I get what she means. It's like, don't kill yourself in the process. You know what I mean? That's what we mean by like burning out. Like, don't get to that point. Cause she always tells me straight up, she's like, if you get to that point of no return, guess what? Your dream will falter as well. And I've taken that very seriously. So if there are times when I just don't feel it, or like I have the discipline to push myself past, that whole feeling of motivation. Like if I don't have it, I still pursue it. But at the same time, like if I like talking about your biohack, if my body, man, is not functioning at full capacity, like optimally, I won't push myself. Like especially with my brain, I need everything to be functioning because I'll just pay the consequences later, and the work won't be worth it either, right? You'll just get more bitter and more resentful about it. So like what I mean is that to distinguish, those individuals that say, oh, I'm not motivated, so I'm not going to do it today. It's like, no. There's not being motivated, and then there's not having the energy, right? And that there's two different things. Like for me, it's like, I'm not always motivated. You know what I mean? I'll wake up some days and say, why am I doing this? Like who's listening to this podcast? I'll be honest. Like that's how I talk to myself. But I still push myself to make the reels, to make the clips, whatever, because there are those people that are watching it. And besides that, I'll be honest, is because I enjoy doing it. I really love putting out this podcast. Like I believe it'll go far, but I'm not doing it because of that promise of success or that idea, that inclination. It's because I just genuinely love talking to people and learning about their stories. You know what I mean? And it's a great networking tool for me. So that's what kind of pushes me past the concept of motivation, is to be disciplined in that you're doing this for a greater reason, right? Now, if you have no energy, right? Like you're exhausted, you have black eyes, red eyes, you come back from a surgery, which I went through a surgery this past month. Yeah, I wouldn't advise pushing yourself, right? Because you'll pay the consequences later. And there's such a thing as taking a break to stimulate your mind. So when you do return, you'll be more ready for the day, right? Ready for the task at hand. So I was going to talk to you about remedies, but those are kind of like the remedies that I kind of instill for myself. Would you say that, what kind of remedies do you do other than like the teas, and do you exercise or anything else? Yeah.
Most definitely. So number one, getting enough sunshine. I know so many artists
Vitamin
who
D,
are literally in
yes.
the basement. You need that vitamin D.
Yes.
And I'm going to tell you, people don't think it makes a difference.
Yeah.
But for me, I know if I don't get outside, if I don't get enough like aerobic exercise because of my blood type,
Yes.
I know that I'm not going to feel as well when it gets to the daytime, and that's going to affect my mental health. The other thing I want to come back to you and talk about is the idea of that kind of work-life balance, because if you check it out,
Yes.
you're a filmmaker. You want to go ahead and make something, show the world, let them feel something. For me, I want to leave a legacy. Because I know there will be one day on this earth I will no longer be here. So I
I
want
love
to
that.
leave something for my children and their children and everyone else, the inhabitants of the future, so that they can go ahead and take that and say, you know what, I feel something and I'm inspired by this to do, act, or learn about something. For me personally, though, it's like there's a million other filmmakers in this world who can
Yeah.
inspire other people.
Yeah.
My mother only has one son. So
Yeah.
coming back to your mom comment about her wanting you to take a break, like when I have kids, they're only going to have one father. My parents are only going to have one son. So when I look back at it at the same time, I got to take care of myself. If I'm the golden goose and I lay the golden eggs, you can have as many golden eggs as you want, but you're not going to get another golden goose. So really to take care of yourself, I think is going to be really important on that side. And the other thing is for people who really do suffer, you need to consult with a mental health professional. I
Yeah.
really support therapy. Like people
I
who
love
go to
that.
therapy,
I love that.
I love
Yeah.
that. And not even to talk about your traumas, but like, let's say you're a filmmaker, you're having a hard time with your production, but you're the showrunner, so you got to do it. Somebody like that should have a therapist to help them there as an accountability partner. What's going on? Did the producer swear at you again? Did the cinematographer say they need more time? Did the costume department ask for more budget? I'll love to all of these departments, but for somebody to be there with you and to listen to you and actually be there to vent, it could be,
Yeah.
your partner, it could be a family member, a friend, but a professional is probably the best.
Yeah.
Having someone there to help you through that is going to be so important. And also knowing how to pick up the pieces. When if you've ever been to art class,
Yeah.
it's just a mess. It's a mess everywhere. All the tables are full with paint and all that stuff. But when art class is finished, you got to clean up. And I see some
Yes.
artists who don't clean up before they go ahead and do their next production, and it just kind of bleeds into the paper.
Oh,
You
I
want to
love
make sure
that.
that
I love
you
that.
have a
Both literally and
clean slate.
figuratively. I know exactly what you mean. It's
You
kind
know
of
what I
like
mean there?
because I take it literally in the sense like my workspace needs to be clear before, like how you end the night. You know what I mean? You're done working, and then tomorrow's a new day.
Yeah.
Clean your station. So when you wake up tomorrow morning, it won't be like, oh my God, why is everything cluttered? And this is like, I have OCD that way, right? So it's like, don't get so overwhelmed. But also figuratively, like you said, it's like whatever you're kind of struggling with your project, like the current project you're dealing with, the next one you approach it, see how you'll change your ways, right? Like how else you'll approach it differently. That's so true. And I love that you encourage the concept of going to a therapist. That's something that I actually been curious myself, like again speaking to someone, like maybe getting their different insights, because sometimes we're become so insulated, right? We're always like caught up in our minds, especially like I was explaining to you my line of work, my bread and butter kind of thing. One time I was just editing videos at home. That was all I was doing. I was still like making my own projects, filmmaking, whatever, but it was far in between, right? Maybe on the weekends if I was lucky. So when you're just home all the time, you don't realize like the drastic effects it could have on your mental health. But also like speaking about like getting caught up in your own mind, I talked to you about like criticism and like kind of dealing with discouragement and not knowing like how far to go with something. Why do you think artists, do you believe, should maybe create boundaries for themselves when they're putting out their pieces of content or showcasing their work to the public, like touching on what you were saying about having the courage to put out your own first piece of content?
Yeah, and to be honest with you, if I can say this, like sometimes as an artist, I can critique myself, and like if somebody else critiqued myself the way I critique myself, I'd be like, yo, that person's a piece of shit,
Yeah.
Just keep it honest. Because I'm
Yeah,
like,
I
oh,
know,
this
I
could be
know.
better,
We're
like,
our
oh, this acting,
hardest
this,
critic.
whatever. It's the
Yeah.
worst because you know exactly where you know exactly where your weak spots are. No one else who can throw a cheap shot the way you can. I do
Exactly.
want to put a plug in for therapy, which is when I was
Yes.
younger, when I was like maybe in my teens, early 20s, and I had
Yes.
more time on my hands,
Okay.
I would actually go and wander. I don't want to say wander the streets, but I'd spend a lot of time just like in places, for example, like Kensington Market. And I just go ahead and meet strangers. And imagine having really interesting strangers that you can talk to with completely different walks of life that are not there to judge you. Those are the types of conversations that are really cathartic and you can learn a lot from. But now imagine instead of a random stranger who might be, on one, you're actually speaking to a professional who not only knows the tools to help you, but also is a stranger and is not there to judge you because they have no bearing in your actual life.
100%. Yeah.
Um, so support therapy, definitely. To come back to the criticism part, it is so easy for you to judge yourself. And because you were there and only you really know what you had in mind. So you can be like, for me, my thing is my biggest problem is I look at the movies, I've looked at a lot of my movies, and I'm like, what I pictured in my mind was so much more magnanimous than what is actually on screen. And
Yeah.
that is a problem. And the only person creating this problem is you, because no one else knows what is going on in your mind. Everyone else can appreciate what you've made rather than what the intention was.
Got
So
it.
because of that, sometimes when you go along the path of making a film, you have to realize that your intentions might change and what you had originally and what you have now might be completely different. For you to accept where you are now and accept this as the end product. I set out to bake this cake by Martha Stewart. I got something back that looked like Rachel Ray. But you know what? I'm going to go ahead and eat it and enjoy it anyways.
Got it. No, I love that. The fact that I've had those experiences, right? Like you'll watch a film or you'll watch something that you've created yourself, and you're saying this isn't how I envisioned it. But that's what I love about your positive attitude. It's like you'll know what pieces you need to kind of like fix for the next time, but also be gracious about the whole opportunity. That's something that I kind of take away from you, is like you're always displaying gratitude to these kind of situations, because at the end of the day, it's like we have the privilege, we have the opportunity to pursue what we desire, right? As much as like we work hard for it, there's a lot of people with different circumstances that are not fortunate enough. So like the gratitude that you kind of display for the people that you work with and the audience that you share your work for is really, really honorable and admirable.
I really appreciate that. And the truth is that we are so blessed. Like honestly, we are
Yeah.
so blessed
Yes.
to be in a country with so much freedom, to be in a place where we're, in, I guess, coming towards the prime of our lives
Of
as
course.
filmmakers, as people with networks,
Hmm.
as people who have the health to produce, like to go ahead and produce this. And I was watching something and they said, like, Warren Buffett would trade places with you because you've got the time and the vitality.
Yeah.
Because if you go ahead and you make, hundreds of billions of dollars, you can't get the next 50 years of your life back.
No.
So looking at time as one of our most valuable assets, I think is definitely great. The other thing I want to come back to here is when it comes to doubts, we'll never be happy if we're just chasing highs. And we
That's
have
true.
to realize that, life is highs and lows. And when it comes to volatility, artists have the most volatility. You think about
That's
the
so true.
passion of a starving artist. You think about like a movie like Taxi Driver, like these movies where people are like literally on the edge.
Yeah.
So life is really a measure of your highs and lows.
Yep.
And for for an artist to be able to stay even keel and to realize that life will be a series of highs or lows, or like I'm either getting out of a crisis, I'm about to go into a crisis, or I just finished a crisis. If you want to look at it that way, life is a series of rises and falls. And for you to really be able to accept that, take whatever criticism that comes with it, and still kind of roll with the punches, that's probably going to be most important for you to maintain your buoyancy in this ocean of art.
Yeah, no, I love that because the reason why I know for my fact for a fact why I'm guilty of this is the reason why we struggle with self-doubt and the negative criticism we put upon ourselves is because we have this romanticized notion that life is supposed to be about happiness, and if it's not, then you're doing something wrong. But like you said, life is about pain, life is about suffering just as much it is about happiness, and there are going to be ups and downs. Like it's so crazy to me, like even when I'm on a high, like a flow, there are days that surprise me where it's like, oh my god, there's another issue that came up, you know what I mean, that kind of ruined this 2-day streak, and I realized, no, that's life, you know what I mean, there's always going to be something that's going to surprise you for better or for worse. So I love that actually. The more we embrace it, the more we'll be at peace with the craft we pursue and with ourselves, right?
Wow, really well way to put it. Just to repeat
Thank
that,
you.
the more that we embrace it, the more that we make peace with ourselves. It's kind of like, when you're sick, you have a fever,
Yeah.
and you're like, no, I'm not sick, I'm good. But then really, when you go ahead and you lay down in bed and you are at one with the sickness, that's how you recover from the sickness. You know what I mean?
I love that.
That's some deep shit. All right, anyways.
No, I love that.
Yeah.
No, that's great, man. And I just love that we're sharing both similarities. I love that we're sharing many similarities that have been established throughout this conversation. And one of them that I want to bring up now, because I'm a founder and operate 94 Productions Incorporated.
Yeah.
And you were touching on, yes, and you were touching on your own production company, Renergy Media House. And I want to know, like, how this came about. Like, what are the events that inspired the inception of your creative enterprise?
Most definitely. I'd like to first say that I'm really grateful to all the people around me. Renergy Media House is a collective of freelance artists. So you might need something simple like, hey, I need some headshots. Okay, well, listen, I'm working my day job and I love what I do, but I got this person who loves taking headshots. And so I'm going to hook you guys up so you guys can work together. Therefore, we can take on small contracts where everyone is able to do what they love,
Right.
which is ultimately the goal. But then at the same time, we're able to go ahead and form and, make Megazoid and, go ahead and combine our efforts and make something like production, whether it's a music video, commercial, or film. Therefore, everyone is able to get paid to do the things they love because we have people who love the things they do. And all I got to do is, you ever play that game where there are those cards upside down and you got to match like this card and this card, you got to match them together.
Yeah.
You ever play that stuff?
100%.
So I feel like some of Renergy Media House, my job as the owner is to connect people who need art and the people who love the art that they make, put them together. I also want to because I've been really lucky to get to where I am, and I've had a lot of mentors. So these people who helped bring me up, I've realized if they brought me up, it should be my responsibility to help bring the next generation up. Over the past few years, I've taken on a role as a producer.
Okay.
So that's like helping different young directors, like some people on our team, to be like, hey, you know what? No one's been able to put you on. So here, I will go ahead and help fund this project for you. I will go ahead and find people to do these things for you. And as a result, they're able to now, make their own waves. The only thing that I can hope is that one day they'll be very famous on stage, and they won't forget this face over here. But
No,
there's
for
definitely
sure,
some
man.
challenges with that. I mean, number one, obviously being a director, one of the major challenges, in my opinion, is like heating up the kettle, making sure that everybody is on the same level of hotness and
Hmm.
fire towards your project. So that could be like making spec ads, making trailers, making some kind of pitch where everyone is able to see your vision. Because if everyone's able to see the same vision, it's just much easier for us to operate.
Hmm.
Um,
It's true, man.
Sorry, I forgot. I'm honestly, I need to have a little bit more tea because I forgot your original question. What was the original
Oh, no
question?
worries,
Yeah.
man. It's I just wanted to know, like, you kind of like shed some light on it. Speaking about your whole story about gratitude with all the creative individuals that you've kind of acquired and surrounded yourself with. But I just wanted to know exactly like the creative enterprise itself, Renergy Media House. Like, what events, like, what inspired you to create this company? Like, why did you even start in the first place?
Yeah, well, the great thing is that you know what, when you find people who are going in the same direction as
Hmm.
you want to travel with them.
Right.
So if I know this is an area I want to go into and I've got these people to go with me, it makes the journey a lot more enjoyable and I get to have a lot more I guess you could say capabilities. Because
Right.
I've got some friends who are like, I love art, but I suck at negotiating, so I never make money. And I'm like, well, let me help you with this so you can
Got
get this
it.
out of it. And for me, it's like, oh, hey, I suck at drawing storyboards, but I've got somebody on the team who loves to do it. When we can all work together in that way, we actually create a unit. And that really, when people have a united goal and vision, that's what allows people to have certain amounts of connective energy in a mastermind alliance. Like you
Yeah.
take one battery, it can power your remote. You take batteries and you link them in series, you can create enough battery to power your whole house. That's
Yeah.
the idea of Renergy Media House.
I
And
love that.
shout out to everybody in the house.
It's
And
always
we're
a
looking to
backstory with
expand.
the name. I love it. It's never
Well,
like, nah, just it's Renjie
yeah.
Li Media. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's just me. I mean, that's boring. But the one
But
thing I
yeah.
want to say is no one person can do everything as a director. You know this.
Yes, of
No one
course.
person could do everything, but everybody can do something.
Right. I love that.
Let me come back to you. 9-4 Productions. Tell me about that because
Yeah,
I know it's
94
not just
Productions.
about the year you were born. It's not just the year on the license.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm glad. You know me. I'm always happy to discuss 94 Productions
Talk to me.
and the backstory behind it. No, for me, again, obviously it was the year I was born, so I wanted to show some pride in that. And the concept with that is like individuals like yourself, when you recognize 94 and oh, hey, I was born in 94. For me, I have a lot of friends and supporters growing up, so when they see the 94, anyone that was born in that year could have some sort of resonance with that. I don't know, there's like a sentimentality I was trying to play off of, and it seems to be working because there are individuals that have a sense of pride when they see my work and they're part of the same year. They kind of see that, so that's what one aspect that I was kind of striving toward.
Right.
But the other aspect that I derive from why 94 existed is Quentin Tarantino is my hero, and I often discuss him on the podcast. And one day I hope to meet him and, just share my enthusiasm, like what he did for me. Not so much his films, but like his films, yes, are definitely a big component, but I mean, what he represents, what he could do. The rebel, the outsider, the guy that didn't know anybody in the film business, but made it on the tenacity and the conviction within himself that he could do it. And obviously he's talented and he's a brilliant man, but that's it, right? Like he once said on Howard Stern, like I walk into my house sometimes and I'm just baffled at the fact that I paid for all this with my mind. You know what I mean? And that to me, speaking of legacy, is that just overtakes me. You know what I mean? Like going back to my family, growing up with like, immigrant mentality, everyone's doctor, lawyer. No offense to those professions, and I'm lucky enough to even pursue them myself. The way I perceive it is anyone could do those professions in reality. Like everyone can be a certain way, but being a filmmaker, now I'm not saying everyone could be a filmmaker, but I'm saying being Daniel Calderon, only I can do that. You know what I mean? Like my films that I create, like Tarantino, like the films that I revere from him, only he could do that. And there's something special, and that's something sacred, that holds close to him, right? That makes him a legacy, makes him a legend. I mean, and that's something that I'm fondly, endlessly, I mean, fascinated with that concept of leaving behind a legacy. Because marketing, I studied marketing. You could be a marketing coordinator, you could be kinesiologist, but there'll only be one Renjie Li, the filmmaker, right? Like the films you produce are an extension of you, and there's only one person, which is you, that can see it through. So that's how I see it, and that's what actually motivates me each day, is that everything I do, only I can do it. You know what I mean? No one else can replicate it.
I think
Thank
that's
you.
beautiful.
Thank
But let me go ahead and ask you this, okay?
Yes,
It's
yes.
2053. You're now, a world-renowned filmmaker.
Yeah.
You see somebody with their production company, and it's named 23 Productions. And they
Yes.
said, hey, I watched Daniel Calderon stuff when I was a kid, and he made this stuff in 2023. And because of that, I decided to make this production company called 23, because I was born in 2023.
Right.
2053, they're 30, and they're talking to you saying, I got to meet my idol when I was a kid. How would you feel about that? Because now you're in Quentin's shoes. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, I love. Thank you so much. You're putting a huge grin on my face, because it's like no one's ever asked me that. I've obviously like wondered that myself. Like, oh, I wonder if that ever would happen for me. Yeah, man, I would just be overblown with gratitude. Like, I just the situation itself, I can't even conceptualize. But I just know I would know how to handle it. I'm hoping that this podcast would still be running by that time. I know it will, because I'll make it happen.
Yeah.
Put every energy, every thought into it. That's the whole concept behind the podcast, is even as I'm established, I'll bring on, like, the way I envision is like someone like that's aspiring creative, they're just starting out, but like sitting next to, like, I don't know, Steven Spielberg, or like Renjie Li, like more established filmmaker.
Wow.
And just seeing, do you know what I mean, like the dynamism between them converse. So what I'm saying is that if that person would have come up to me and say that, I'm the kind of guy that said, let's get you on the podcast and talk about your story. And he'd even be more gratified, because he'd be like, holy shit, I'm on a podcast with Daniel Calderon, Corner Talks podcast, talking about this dream. And I would have like another like celebrity director or another actor or just someone I also revere that would be on that corner talking to him as well, right? Like just having those conversations. I would never like make these people unseen. Like if I see it's genuine, what I'm getting at, if I see these people really did come from nothing, really start from the bottom, or just really have a passion for film, and I'm the one that sparked it, you better believe I'm going to see it all the way through and help you out as best way I can. Right now, my resources are limited. My wealth is only so much, but I really have a big heart. I got it from my mom, and it's like I'm going to do everything I can in my power to help those people that will come up to me and say, you're an inspiration to me. Thank you so much, for doing what you do.
And what you're doing is you're perpetuating a cycle of positivity.
Yes.
Because you make sure, because someone's definitely done it for you, and because somebody was there for you, you get to be there for the next generation. And as I'm getting older, I'm approaching my 30s too, but I'm just thinking, what can I bring to the next generation? I'll tell you the story real quick, which is I had somebody from my last production. It was this actress, and it was her first time acting. And she called me like two weeks later, and I'm like, hey, what's up? She's like, everything okay? She's like, yeah. I just want to let you know I dropped out of university and now I want to become an actress full time. And I'm like, oh, geez. So I realized, I'm like, these people whose lives that we shape, whether we know it or not, I'm not saying we have to, but we should feel a certain sense of responsibility. So I'm like, okay, how can I help you? Because you dropped out because of something I did indirectly. I don't know how your parents feel about this, but let me find a way to put you on. And for me to give back to them, maybe, 20 years down the line, they'll be able to give back to the next generation of actresses. And I don't know, like, let me ask you, have you ever impacted somebody so much with your productions before, where you were like, man, I came to shoot a movie, but you got something completely different out of this? Like, tell me about something like that. Maybe.
Yeah, no, I'm thank you for asking. I I definitely had more of those encounters quite recently. Which again is assurance to me that I'm on the right track and I'm pursuing exactly what I set out to do. But no, I would come to mind is there have been some actors or like people even recently DMing me like saying, hey, could you like help me develop this project or be the director for this project? Even when I work with them on set, they say like, you're just seeing like how elated they are, just by my work. You know what I mean? Like I'm no god or anything like that. It's just like some people, like the way they revere me, I forget who I am. Like I'm crazy enough to believe I can make this dream happen, and I'm very cocky when it comes, like when I talk to myself. And you need that a bit. You need a little bit of like conviction, like that arrogance. I mean, like to get what you want, what you desire, because no one else is going to do it for you. But when it's like spoken to me, you know what I mean? Like if I come up with a film like in a year or 2 years time, and you come back to me like, yo, you're a genius, bro. Like if you say that to me, I'll like turn red and be humble about it, and like say, no, 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 don't worry. Like it's just something I put together. Like I wouldn't even know how to react to it. So I guess back to your question, like, having those people be surrounded by, like, constantly like upping my game and telling me like, this is amazing, and like you got to keep going with this dream, you have something special. I have people telling me like, you'll be the next Martin Scorsese. Like when I yeah, like I'm serious. When I hear that, it's like I just, again, back to what you were saying about 2053 kid coming up to me, whatever. Like it's nice and all, I get goosebumps, but I just can't even conceptualize it now, because it's like I'm not even like where I want to be now. Do you know what I mean? If that makes sense. It's like I'm still trying to figure out these small things. Like I'm still trying to figure out this podcast edit when I finish wrapping up with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like I can't even conceptualize that far ahead. You know what I mean? But life is definitely full of unexpected turns, and this is what I mean by for better or for worse. The pendulum swings both ways, as Tarantino once said. And something that was relieving for me is that my 20s have been very tumultuous. Yes, I had a lot of highlights, but for the most part, man, like it's been very dark and very gritty. I struggle with a lot of like mental health, just been anxiety and stress, and life didn't really like pan out in certain areas the way I wanted to. And that's just my perspective, but doesn't mean I shouldn't be grateful, right? But I'm trying to get at is, I believe that as you pursue something that you care about more than yourself, like something that's greater than you, the world will come together. And back to my hero Tarantino, he had the same situation in his 20s. He had it worse off. He's working minimum wage. He had to pay rent, and like he had his own struggles, right? But he said as soon as like his 20s ended and he approached his 30s, and he made Reservoir Dogs when he was 30, 31, that's when everything changed for him, and his life took off, and that people gave him more respect. People treated him the way he always saw himself. You know what I mean? He felt understood for once. Yeah. And for me, it's like it's not like I'm doing these films to get like a recognition from people. It's just like I've often felt very misunderstood. Like the quirky, weird guy that like loves film. But I'm telling you, like, if everything happens and unfolds the way I envision it, it's like people won't see me that way. You know what I mean? People will see me the way maybe you see me, or the way I've always seen myself. So I'm really like optimistic about the future and what it could happen, because when he said that quote, pendulum swings both ways, is that my 20s were garbage. Like no one gave me the attention or gave me the satisfaction I thought I deserved. You know what I mean? And then when I finally did something for myself, and I made something of myself, that's when everything changed, right? So it's like I just have this like this dark energy about me. You know what I mean? That I'm doing this for myself, but I'm also doing this because I got to prove something also to myself.
You kind of got that monkey on your back, which is also a great motivator. If we can take some of that, of some of those negative emotions and transmute them into energy that we can use to work, ultimately, that is also a great motivator. But I want to come back to what you said about what kind of impact, because I just thought of this while you were talking. Really, there's three things that we leave behind as filmmakers that leave an impact. Number one, the vision that we have on a project. Number two, the character that we have on set as a director, as a leader, as somebody who's walking and nursing this project into inception. Then there's number three, which is the impact that we leave behind with our films. So you don't know Quentin. You probably saw his film first and you said, oh my God, that was impactful. Then you found out about the person and you're like, this guy is really a character and he's got these traits that I really admire. Then the third thing, which we kind of worked backwards in, was we now understand the vision that he had, maybe by reading the script, maybe by understanding the behind the scenes stuff. So really, these are three things that we do, whether it's, like something that we have in our mind, we conceptualize in the past, something that we act on in the present, or leaving the film and having residual effects and impacts from the film as we go on and move on with our careers. I remember our first feature that we showed it in Cineplex, and afterwards, these old Macedonian ladies came and she's like, thank you for showing what my childhood was like. And I'm like,
Wow.
dude, I don't know you. I'm like, I don't know what your childhood is like. I know what the film was like. I know what we shot. But to know that you actually went through this, it just, I don't really know what to think or say about it. I'm just
You
like, man,
resonated with it, yeah.
it's just crazy. You never know what the effects of what something you do today is, which is why it's so important for us as artists to be intentional.
Yeah, and that was beautifully said, man. And again, back to not just film, any creative outlet we pursue. Like again, this podcast.
Yeah,
There were
yeah.
many times when I wanted to just, wipe my hands. I'm telling you, man, I wasn't getting guests. It was very complicated scheduling people. People would flop on me.
Mhm.
It takes a lot out of my day to edit, to come up with captions, the questions,
Yeah,
as you
yeah,
know.
yeah. Absolutely.
But the other day, like someone messaged me and says, like, I've been listening to a lot of your podcasts and it really helped me like out of a
Wow.
depression.
Mhm.
Because like there's a lot of creatives I see like that are on my level, and I just want you to know, like I listen to it every day, and like thanks for doing it. And I'm like, wow, like if I stop, what I mean, I'm cutting an access point to someone, right? Like there are
Yeah.
people that I get that more and more as I do it, where it's like this podcast is clearly like serving to people. Now, again, not everyone probably listens to every episode, but again, another context, someone else that I haven't talked to like in over 3 years, he reaches out and says, hey, like, I have a potential, connection for you. My friend owns a production company. And I said, oh, that's great. Like, he's like, yeah, you guys should connect. I haven't heard from him in 3 years. And then in the follow-up text, he goes, I listen to your podcast every day, man. And he's like, this industry is tricky, but, and requires a little bit of luck, but I believe you got it, and just keep going, whatever. Right. So it's, in other words, this podcast, being an extension of myself, like this creative outlet, he's able to have that access, that the viewpoint of like the way I function, the way I
Yeah.
view,
Yeah.
where my mind works. You know what I mean? Like how I perceive the world. You know what I mean?
For you to change one person, even if that person is yourself, is changing the world. So you going ahead and saving one person's life, to me, that's the equivalent of you saving all of humanity.
Yeah,
So
it's
I
true.
mean, you got to keep, and it's like, especially lighting. Like, when you drive, yeah.
Yeah,
You
of
go
course.
ahead and you drive on the highway,
Yeah,
and you notice that there's one light here, or like let's say you have one street lamp here and you've got
yeah,
another one down there.
yeah,
In between the street lamps, there is almost no darkness. And so when you go ahead and you act as a beacon for somebody, you're leading them through this time in their life. Maybe they were depressed and then they went ahead and they looked at your podcast, and they were driving down the highway and it's dark and they're lost, and you were that street lamp for them. And you know what? The truth is that we'll never know how we impact the world fully. And I think there's something beautiful about that, which
yeah.
is I don't know, it kind of excites me because I'm gonna do what I do, and whatever impact it gets from you, like hopefully it's the same as my intention. But just knowing that I've changed somebody, halfway around the world who I don't even know, something magical about that,
Well, the way I look at it, I often think about this probably every day, is that moment when I meet Tarantino, right? And
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
I shake his hand and I talk to him. I don't know how he is, how he's going to be in person, but again, if my career unfolds the way I envision it, right, since I was a little boy, and all these projects that I'm writing and developing right now, if they're the way they're received, right, and he sees me as this, wow, this is like the next filmmaker of his generation. And I
Wow.
tell him, like, you're the guy that inspired me to pursue my craft. Like I get emotional just thinking about it. It's like, what would that feel like? You know what I mean? To receive that. Like, think about it. He doesn't know me for like 30 years,
Yeah.
right? And then all of a sudden, the film Pulp Fiction, on the year I was born, that was released, he would say like 30 years later, like inspired this kid to like pursue his own dream. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. It's like you said, it's resounding. It's something to definitely to think about.
And that's real legacy. And I hope that Quentin does see this episode one day and
Yeah.
is able to go ahead and put you on. I just think that,
100%.
if you have something in your mind and you work your way towards it, no matter where you go, you're going to get closer and closer to that. So for me personally, like I love Tarantino too. I don't know if there is any specific director. I definitely think Quentin is one of them, but like I don't know if there's any directors who I'd be like, wow, I'm really inspired by you right now. I think that I'm really inspired by a lot of writers. I find that writing and like text,
Oh yeah, that's
like
fine. Everyone has their source of
yeah,
inspiration, man. But that's what I meant. Why I had to kind of clarify why Tarantino is this hero. It's not entirely his films. It's because there's other filmmakers I revere. You know what I
mhm,
mean? Like I love like Steven Spielberg, Scorsese, David Fincher, great directors, right, out there, and writers as well, like Aaron Sorkin. But at
Sorkin
the
is
same
yeah,
time, right, Sorkin's great. But at the same time, it's like Tarantino fits the bill for me because it's what he embodies. Like it's just everything. Like this guy didn't go to film school. This guy was in a rut in his 20s. Now, again, people might say, really, like, because people get this misconception about me, like, you really had it that bad, and it's like, trust me, man, like, I'm not like everybody else. Like, I'm a very odd, like, you know, quirky kind of individual that had a lot of like letdowns with friends and relationships and things like that. So what I'm saying is that this is all I love, like film and craft, and so what I'm saying is I relate to him in that aspect. So when he says he turned it around through the tenacity of pursuing his dreams, and you know, he made it happen all with the conviction of his heart. You know what I mean? Like he didn't know anybody. He literally didn't know anybody, man. And that's me. I didn't know anybody. I came like you. I came from nothing in a sense, like a middle-class family, very simple, very modest, mild-mannered. And I make them fearful every day because they've never seen a child of their family like pursue something so unconventional. And to have me like prove them wrong every day and like go after something with all because I have a conviction in my heart that it could all turn around, you know, and it could all come together. It's highly impressive to them, right? It's a beautiful sentiment. So yeah, man, I just wanted to make that notion clear. Like when I say my hero's Tarantino, it's the filmmaking. I love his films. Still remember that feeling when I watched Django Unchained, but it's what he represents to me. And I know it. I'm going to pursue it, where I'm going to get him on this podcast one day, man. And it's going to be the episode that's going to blow up this like platform, because if you've been following me from like when I started and like just to see like my transformation and my progress, how crazy would it be to finally have a hero on and like to just explain to him like how much he meant to me? You know what I mean?
It would be probably, I don't want to say it would probably be the best episode, because this one will be the best episode when we drop. Please do check it out on YouTube and all social media sites. But what I want to say to you, man, is like when it comes to you and the support,
yes,
us weirdos, we got to stick together, man.
We do.
And the people who really understand what it's like to go through art, we have to be a lot more empathetic with each other, and we have to be a lot more supportive of each other. When my friends got a show, I got to make sure I go and show up to show them the same love they're showing me. To come back to that attitude of gratitude, making sure that we can support the people who are supporting us is probably one of the best things we can do. And the truth is, sometimes the people who love you the most aren't the people who are going to support you the most.
No.
The people who might not know you at all might be the people who support you the most.
No.
And for us to be open to that invitation of, hey, let's go ahead on this journey together, I find that's going to be the most important thing for me going forward, is, you know, making sure that if you work with good people on your sets, it almost doesn't feel like work. It just feels like you're just having a school project, having fun, going back to those vibes, right? You know
that's exactly what happened on the last project I worked on. I'm not kidding you. Like, as I cultivate this network of people I want to work with, I start to see the resounding effects of like the positive effects of being surrounded by them, like the environment I've cultivated, and proudly so. You know, just how everyone was so elated, like, you know, we were all like together and in harmony, and we had hiccups. There were some negative moments where it's like, you know, timing's always a bitch when you're working with film. Excuse my language, right?
No, it's
a
your podcast.
Yeah, it's a bitch, right? No, but no, because we've been keeping it so like eloquently put and professional here. But the reality is, everybody that knows in filmmaking, like, time is your worst enemy out of everything. But we made it work, and that's what's important. Everybody I dealt with, no one was half-assing it. No one was sitting down. I don't want to do this. Everybody wanted to work. And that's something that I wanted to bring back to your point, Renjie, is when I first started out, you know, actually like sitting down and making films like 5 years ago, in that short span, because I've been writing since I was 20, but I actually like started being a director when I was like 25.
Okay.
Or a little bit earlier than that. Yeah, like 22, whatever the math calculation is on that. But the point is that to see these people I worked with, like these PAs that are like 21, 22, right? When I first started, and to be in that position that I used to be like them, right? Like a shadow, a great director, like someone that's more prominent in the industry.
100%.
They were like just honored to be there. And I look at myself like, who the hell am I? Like, I haven't even gotten a feature film yet. Like, I've only been making shorts, you know, my whole story, right? And for them to tell me like just to see them like, oh, I need that light change, and like 5 guys rush to it and change it. It's like, that's amazing. But it's not power to be taken advantage of. See, I don't have an ego where it's like I'm in control. I listen to literally everybody, even the guy catering. It's like, how can we fix this? Like, some guy will suggest an idea, I'll listen. Now, if I like your idea, I'll use it.
And if I don't, I respectfully, I feel the same way, my friend. Yeah.
It's like, I'm not going to just take people, like people often confuse me as like, oh, like you have that arrogance, you don't want to take my idea. It's like, buddy, everything is in service of the story. I really couldn't give a shit. If you have a brilliant idea, by all means I'll credit you in the credits, but it has to work, and you have to explain to me why it's going to work, and I have to feel it why it's going to work. You know what I mean? Because everything I do, every piece of feedback I provide, there's always a intelligible explanation behind it. There's not like, oh, it's shit. You know what I mean? It's no, like, why is it shit? Tell me. And if you can't provide that, then I can't use it. You know what I mean? So just touching on that criticism, it's like we gotta look out for that. But back to your point, man, like definitely gotta be grateful for the people that we surround ourselves with, and just seeing how far we progress in the career.
100%. And just to go, shout out to all the volunteers who come and help out on both of our productions. You volunteers that you make ourselves whole. I'm going to come to you. I'm going to shake your hand. Come look at the monitor. Come have some coffee. We are all humans, although we might be on different levels in this, film hierarchy. We are all humans. We all breathe the same air, bleed the same blood. So in the end, when we come together, like, we're not better than you. We just have more experience. Things might be different, but shout out to all of our PAs, all the people who come and help us. And the other thing I want to say is, as friends, as people, when you're suffering, I'm inviting you. It's an open invitation. You got my number now. Call me.
100%.
I'll make time in my schedule to talk to you,
sir.
because we got to work together. And
yeah,
I'm hoping to see you at the top. And please let me know if there's something I can do to collaborate. Again, thank you so much for having me. I actually just got a text from my mama. She's like, hey, can you drive me to Walmart? Because I got her a Walmart gift card for
that's awesome.
Because I bought my mom something for Christmas, and she's like,
Nice.
oh yeah, this is great, but it's too expensive. So she went and refunded. She went and refunded my gift. She's like, here's the receipt. The money will go back on your credit card. I'm like,
oh yeah, yeah.
Mom. Like,
moms, I don't know why we can't please them with the gift. Like, it's always something wrong. They got to return it, or it wasn't just right. So yeah. No, I feel you on that, man. And honestly, yeah, I hope to see you at the top too. I know we'll both see each other at the top, and we'll both be there to celebrate our successes. I really look forward to connecting, even if it is just a drink, to catch up, create a friendship, and seeing a collaboration through. I think that would mean the world. And this has been probably, I'm not kidding you, Renjie, like one of the most insightful, engaging conversations I've had in a while. Just being able to have this platform, that's what I'm truly grateful for, to discuss all our journeys and experiences and our trials and tribulations.
No, I really appreciate it, man. And we do have some other projects. Like we actually have a music group as well. So besides film, we have a music group.
There you go.
We have an album coming out.
Subsidiaries.
We have some. We're looking to get the funding into our account. But
awesome.
For example, I had a film. I was acting.
Right.
If I'm acting, I realize I'm no Mel Gibson. I can't act and direct. So now I got somebody.
But if you could do,
like, hey, I know I can count on you because this is what you love doing.
Yeah.
I'm going to put you in that position so I can go ahead and excel at my position.
Hey, why not? Yeah, I'll write and direct your role for sure.
That's it, man.
That's it, brother. All right. Well, Renjie, really appreciate you coming on the podcast. Thank you again for sharing your insights from the industry. And thank you, everybody, for listening. And we'll talk soon.